Hello, everybody. Welcome again to my YouTube channel, and you can join us in this new session and learn more about future studies and a new generation. I'm very glad, and it's my big pleasure to have a very good professional futurist among us today. He is also a member of the World Futures Studies Federation. He is my guest, and we will be talking about a few topics of interest for you. For the beginning, let's ask him to introduce himself. His name is Mr. Dana Marduk. Hello, Dana Marduk. Hello, Mr. Dana Marduk. How are you?
Hi, Victor. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
So this is my YouTube channel, and as you well know, I have already shared a couple of videos and playlists with the subscribers to this channel. And so far we have discussed many topics by among them, of course, continuous dialogue with Dr. Thomas Lombardo, who is an expert in science fiction literature and, of course, futures studies. And I have decided to open up this new playlist, and for the moment I have put the title that the youth are the future, to convey the message that we need to encourage more people from the younger generation to become involved in futures studies and etc., and becoming professional futurists later in their lives. So can you please introduce yourself to our viewers and share your story? I mean, how did you end up becoming interested in the futures studies field in the first place?
Okay, well, actually, I have to say that from when I was around 12 or 13, I started to read some books like the Isaac Asimov and Jules Verne's books, that they were some sci-fi, let's say, books. And actually, it really got my attention about thinking about the future. I was so, let's say, enthusiastic about these kinds of topics. So started to read all the books that we had that time. There was no internet that time. There was no YouTube, no movies, nothing except for books. So I started from that time, I can say, and just step by step, I started to read more and more novels about the future, whatever I actually had, or some stories, let's say, in the magazines or something like that. So after that, I actually started teaching English, let's say, like my profession, for about 12 years. So I really was, let's say, interested about learning and at the same time teaching. But I saw a lot of problems in the education system, not only in the language, but also at school, university. Well, I had a lot of friends. We talked about the education system, that how it is so, let's say, useless, really, because we spend a lot of, let's say, hours a day and years in our life studying, but after we finish our school, almost all the knowledge that we have learned, let's say, we have whether forgotten or it's obsolete. I mean, it's useless. We don't use it in the real life. There is no skill, actually, learned.
Can you stop you for a moment? You just tell me that you started your study with science fiction literature, but how about the more formal futures studies literature? Did you also study those books or journals as well as the novels and stories, or not?
Well, actually, I started around, I think, 2015, about 5 years ago, to start to, let's say, read some books like, let's say, Ray Kurzweil's books about the singularity is near. Actually, even before that, about 2012, let's say. And to read some other books, but it was until 2017 that I just found the WFSF, and I found that, okay, there is an organization, that there are some academic publications and books and journals. And yes, I started to read some books and it really became interested. And as you remember, actually, I found you, hopefully, and we got some connections, and then I became the WFSF member, let's say, and just started to study more and more.
You mean World Futures Studies Federation? By the
exactly,
WFSF.
Yeah. Right, sure.
Well, I well remember that you studied that course developed by the former president of the World Futures Studies Federation, Dr. Jennifer Gidley, who is also a very well-known and worldwide known expert on education futures, of course.
Yeah, actually, we started translating her last book about the future, a very short introduction. Actually, there was a, let's say, gap between this, even though I have already finished the whole translation into Kurdish language, but now we are in the editing, let's say, period. But you know about the coronavirus crisis, almost everything now.
Coronavirus pandemic is a huge event and it's going to impact everybody and every country and every society. And very interestingly, your topic or field of interest, I mean, education systems or a revolution in education systems could have a very nice place right now for reconsideration, in the sense that today lots of students worldwide have to study at their homes. And there has been a huge disruptions, at least for the half of the planet population, in terms of their access to the school, I mean the physical school. And I believe that right now there is a big opportunity for people like you who are focused on two things, education and the new generation, to bring new ideas, to commit to a emerging vision for the future of the society. How did you found this impact by this coronavirus on your field of interest?
Well, actually, according to the, let's say, UNESCO, just the latest statistics, 1.7 billion students all over the world are, let's say, schoolless now. I mean, they don't go to school. It's, let's say, the only way is to learn online. And so actually, I want to really say something very interesting. If just before the coronavirus, if we asked the schools and universities, we have a plan to test an online course for all the students around the world in all schools just for 1 or 2 weeks. But in this period, students should not go to school and we want to just test. I believe that most of them, they would reject, let's say, this plan. They said, no, it's not possible. How we should actually be online and there should be no face-to-face education or communication. This is impossible. But now we see, let's say, because of this crisis, COVID-19 crisis, it's a force. And actually, whether they like it or not, they have to.
It's a sort of a blessing in disguise for people like you.
Yeah, well, exactly. And what I think about is that why we should be in a crisis to do something, why we should not start just before that so we can plan for it, so we can do it much better. Now I'm in touch with some schools, at least in my place here in Iraq, let's say Iraq, that a lot of students and a lot of schools, they do not have the, let's say, technical foundation for online studying because they don't have website. I mean, they have some problems in softwares. So if we could actually think about this just before this crisis in the future. So this is a really great lesson. Now we can become prepared for the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years to push the schools and universities and education system to become at least, I do not say 100% online, but at least 50%.
Sort of blended education.
Exactly, yeah, we can blend it so that in cases of such crisis, we can at least keep up with the education. And as you said, yeah, this is a good opportunity. At the moment, we are working on that to teach children at least about the future and future studies online and tell them that, okay, we have to teach children to be prepared, to know about technologies, to know about the future, to be prepared for that future. We will talk about it later, actually, if we had time, about the problems that we have with the educational system and what are the solutions and what we should do about it.
Yeah. A very nice story about your involvement in the World Futures Studies Federation activity is, of course, the major and the major event, I mean, by introducing a teenager into the federation as a member.
Right.
And his name is Arsam Metin, and you are his stepfather, right?
Right, yeah, exactly.
And he was the first member of the WFSF Junior category of membership. And just let me share my screen for a moment with you and the viewers.
Okay.
Do you see my screen right now?
Okay, yeah, of course.
You see right now?
Yes. Yes.
What do you see?
Yeah, yeah, it's a Yahoo website that, there was a report. Yes, exactly.
Yes, of course. One of our members who is from Japan and right now lives in New York City, he is a very well-known journalist working with Yahoo Japan, and he actually published a very comprehensive report on WFSF Junior. And although the pages in Japan is here, I can use the automatic Google translation for a short review. It says 12-year-old boy, youngest aspiring futuristic study, will it spread to Generation Z? And here he is introducing Arsam. And of course, before this report by Yahoo Japan, we had also in our own website, in the World Futures Studies Federation website, in the section communication. Do you see right now the website of the Federation?
Right. Yeah,
there is a menu here, communications, and there is an interview with WFSF Junior members. There are right now 2 members in this category. One of them is Arsam Metin from back then he was living in Turkey and right now in Iraq. But another one was Andres Felipe Castellano, who is based in Colombia, and this was a very very big change in terms of accepting school-age children into a recognized international body of scholarly and practitioner level futures studies. And what is your experience? And can you tell us and the viewers more about this very important event in terms of actually walking your talk, in a sense? You are saying that you are interested in both the new generation, about a big reform in the educational systems, and of course in the futures studies and the long-term future.
Yes, right. Well, I believe that education is the foundation of the society. I mean, economy, politics, environment, everything is based on education. If we have a generation that they can really understand what is going on in this world, and they learn the skills that can prepare them to face with the challenges that we will have right now and in the near future, then we can easier, let's say, solve these problems. So the problem is that our education still is based on 100 years ago, let's say, industries that really haven't changed a lot. If you look at the other
factory model of education.
Exactly. If you look at the transportation, the healthcare, let's say other industries, they have changed a lot, but the education system is almost the same. Now, we need to change not only the, let's say, outside of this system, but only inside it, the content. I mean, what we teach children. The problem with the education system is that they focus too much on some information that, let's say, are mostly useless, and almost students learn no skills. Let me tell you what I believe that actually we should do in terms of education for a young generation. I believe that let's say especially 21st century skills that are needed for children, we can divide it into three categories. One is learning skills like critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. This is really essential for the new generation.
This is the new standard, yeah.
Exactly. Second is the literacy skills. We need to teach our children about the information literacy, the media literacy, and the technology literacy. These are things that are new. 100 years ago, we did not have social media like that. We did not have this technology that we have today. So we need to teach our new generation about the things. And the second one is the life skills, like flexibility, like leadership, like productivity, and even the social skills. These are the skills that, let's say, we can say are essential for our children, not only to memorize some topics that now is available for everybody. We have to think much, much forward than today. I mean, let's say 5 or 10 years. AI will absolutely take over a lot of fields, especially education, because we don't need to memorize things. We need to analyze things. We need to understand it and then to connect the dots and make something new. Now, we have focused on new generation. Why? Because we believe that children today, if they learn, they can become big leaders in the future and they can become decision makers. The problem that now we have in all countries, I think, especially let's say if we go back to this coronavirus, it's because of the lack of that futuristic view, let's say, that they think that, okay, now we have the whole system working, everything is fine, and they do not think that, okay, there is at least one scenario that you haven't seen it, but you could, let's say, predict it by just having even one person. Okay, there is a really worse scenario about the coronavirus that you have to take some measures, but you haven't done that. Why? Because you have no knowledge about the, let's say, the science of future studies, and also it's an art. You have to know where to use it. Anyway, we have focused on this to teach children about the future studies, and we have started actually. Our son, as you mentioned before, now is working on some basics of the foundations of future studies, and we try to make it easier and simple for children to think about it, to learn, and to learn it like a game, actually. We don't want, again, to teach them something to memorize it. No, this is not actually what we want to do. We want to change it. So gamification is really important in education, and as we already talked about it, we think about the edutainment, not education only. We have to mix this together so that children will like it. And hopefully technologies are helping a lot. AI, AR, VR, these are the technologies that can help us a lot in this.
You know, a few days ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who is also, like you, is very much involved in teaching futures studies to the school-age children or teenagers, or that age cohort category. And he made a very interesting comparison between packaged food and academic degrees. He told me that if you go to a supermarket, you see that on every packaged food and other stuff that you buy for consumption, you see an expiration date, okay?
Exactly.
But today, the graduates of the current educational systems carry with them degrees, I mean, either a bachelor degree or a graduate degree or a PhD degree, without any expiration date.
Exactly.
And he told me that it's very strange. We use for the foods that we consume every day and for our consumption of, for our survival and our, body. Every day we are using those foods and we care about their expiration date, but for the education itself and for the degrees that are given or granted to people, we do not have such a system. And although we are talking about lifelong learning and such kind of agenda by the same organization you mentioned, by UNESCO and other United Nations related organizations, and in the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is about equitable and lifelong learning. We cannot become much more convinced that if we give people those degrees that have no expiration date, they will be tempted or they will be encouraged to pursue lifelong learning. And it occurred to me that it could happen as a very interesting scenario or narrative that, who knows, perhaps a few years later, we decide to make a big overhaul of the educational system. And given the accelerating growth or exponential growth of the human knowledge, we officially declare that degrees and academic or educational certificates or all other documents that are related to evaluating the level of education of somebody should carry with them an expiration date. How do you think about this?
Yeah, actually, I think it is necessary because we have to upgrade ourselves. Actually, let me tell you, I think the problem that we have with this system is that our brain thinks linearly and we do not think exponentially while we are living in an exponential world. This is the problem not only in education, in a lot of other industries. For example, I can tell you about, let's say, car industry, about transportation industry, that a lot of owners of the big industries, they still think linearly. We have seen huge industries like the photography that we know how Kodak actually they become bankrupted just because they thought linearly, and they never expected that in the next 10-15 years, let's say startups like Instagram or let's say the digital camera will totally disrupt their industry. But now there are a lot of other industries that in the next 5 years, they are going to disrupt a lot of industries, but still we don't see them. And actually, Peter Diamandis, in his latest books, The Future is Faster Than You Think, in different chapters, talk about different industries, that how they are going to be disrupted by new technologies. Now, about what you said, yes, I think it's necessary to make the certifications actually with the expire date, but I think in the long-term future, let's say probably 10 to 15 years, even the certification will be obsolete. Why? Because what we need is skills actually. Okay, if you have 10 certifications from Harvard University, from different universities, but you do not have the skills that can solve the problems and that, let's say, prepare you for your business, for your life, I think it's absolutely useless. So, yeah, even in the...
Well, if you refer to the job market statistics, you'd see that a lot of companies or organizations are complaining that they are indeed putting out announcement or job advertisement out there, but because there is no skills in the market to match to the job specification or responsibilities, they have not been able to meet those vacant positions.
Exactly. Not only that, let me give you another statistic that, let's say, for young generation, let's say in the next 10 years, 65% of the jobs in the next years do not exist right now today. It means that we have to change our mindset about the jobs even in the future.
Can you give a few examples of those kind of jobs to people?
Okay, yeah. For example, about let's say AI. If according to Ray Kurzweil, that said that we will have singularity in 2029, so that it will be a time that AI will be even stronger probably than the human, let's say, intelligence. So in that time, a lot of jobs will not exist anymore. I can say even from jobs like teaching, all right, that needs some let's say skills, but AI will take over that. Now, you need to become an expert in AI that probably does not exist right now, or we will have, let's say, 3D printers that already exist now, but still it's not in the everyday life. We will need some technicians to work with the AI, or we can talk about IoT. that in the next 5 years, it will be about 50, let's say, billion devices connected to each other. It will be a huge market for the new jobs that now they do not exist right now. But in the next 5 to 10 years, definitely we will need a lot of experts.
I was seeing or reading a couple of reports about these trends that you are talking about right now, and a few of them were highlighting the fact that in the digital transformation revolution, we will be going to have a huge demand in the market for cybersecurity professionals. And
Exactly.
by referring back to, or by reviewing the supply side, I mean, the side of the workforce resources or human resources, they had discovered a huge gap between people who can undertake or accept to become cybersecurity professionals or IT security professionals, and the huge number of positions in the market. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. So now we have to, from today, prepare the new generation for that. Unfortunately, what I see is that still now the teachers are teaching something that in the next 5 years, those students, I mean, they think that, oh, I have wasted all of this time. I should, let's say, study something else. I should have studied about the AI or let's say AR, VR, new technologies. But unfortunately, when I go and talk to the schools now, the authorities still think just like 50, 100 years ago, and it's very difficult to convince them that the world is changing faster than you think. I don't know, what do you think, Victor? I mean, how we should, let's say, convince them about
as a first step, I
transformation?
believe that as the first step, I believe that what you have already started, I mean, introducing the futures literacy among those content that are right now taught by school teachers could be a very huge step forward in the sense that we cannot change the system overnight, and we cannot make a discontinuous jump in the current practices. But the more people are exposed to the futures literacy, I mean, both the methods and the content produced by professional futurists, and using those content as a complementary addition to the current curricula. Let me just again share my screen with you and the viewers for a moment. Do you see my screen right now?
Now, yes, right? It's
Yeah.
Teach the Future, yeah, right.
Yeah, of course. One of the institutional members of the World Futures Studies Federation is this institute, which is led by Dr. Peter Bishop, Teach the Future.
Right.
And I would like to encourage all of the viewers who are either parents of their kids, or either they are involved in a sense in their educational systems. I mean, pre-university or pre-college levels. Go to this website and check the resources that are there, because there is a huge collection of resources for people.
Amazing.
And for
Yeah.
example, teachers who like to
Exactly.
prepare students for tomorrow, teach the future today, in addition to teach the history or teach the standard or the classic content.
Right. Yeah. Actually,
And
it's interesting.
as far as I remember, that you have already downloaded so many parts of these resources yourselves, and are encouraging Arsam and
Exactly.
people who are in his friendship circle and his, so to speak, playmates
Exactly.
to become much more involved in learning more about futures studies by using a more simplified version of the content, of course, not the most highly academic output or highly
Exactly.
academic
Even
papers.
we have worked on the book, Future Thinking, let's say, Play Game. It's an amazing book by Dr. Peter Bishop. So actually, it's interesting to tell you that in World Future Day this year, Arsam was the facilitator for this day. And
Really?
yeah, for about, let's say 15 minutes, we talked to Dr. Peter Bishop about our plan and what we want to do. And he was very interested to get involved actually with teaching the Generation Z and what we are doing here right now. So he said
for the
that,
people who haven't heard about it, the Future Day is celebrated on the 1st of March every year, yes?
yeah, exactly. And well, unfortunately, nobody in our time zone showed up, but we had a chance to talk to Dr. Peter Bishop for 15 minutes, and he supported us about what we are doing, and hopefully we will be in touch with him.
Well, by your time zone, you mean the Middle East region. Well,
Exactly.
of course, the majority of much active futurist communities are based in either North America, or in a sense, Latin America, South America,
Right.
and Europe and Australia.
Yeah.
And at the same level of activity and the same level of engagement is not seen in this region in particular.
Well,
But there are some news, some good news about what?
It will make actually what we are doing a little bit more difficult because already nobody is here, let's say, to work about it. It will make it difficult, but anyway, we are going to go this way. Probably it will take years and years, but at least we believe in what we are doing, and we know that it's difficult, but we have some interested people actually that they are going to be involved.
You were talking about your experience of talking between Arsam and Dr. Bishop. What was the key summary of your dialogue?
Well, yeah, actually, Dr. Bishop told us that they are working on teaching the children and even, let's say, high school about teaching about the future. Generally, teenagers are very much interested about the future because the future is interesting for them because there will be some changes and technologies that are going to be in our everyday life. They are coming, let's say, closer and closer. So it will kind of, let's say, intrigue their creativity. They want to think about scenarios. For example, they will think about some scenarios sometimes that, you know, I really have never thought about it because they are teenagers that they when they were born, actually there was internet. So they opened their eyes, they had smartphone or tablets. I remember the first mobile smartphone that I had, it was when I was 28. So imagine, it's about 30 years difference between our generation in technology, and definitely they will be different generation, and all of the teenagers are very
and you know, by when you say that 30 years is the distance or the difference between generations in terms of the absolute years, we need to put it in the context of that exponential growth, because 30 years is not the same in an exponentially growing environment of businesses or the world changes as the 30 years in a linear context.
Yeah, exactly. So if you let me a little bit for 2 minutes, I want to talk about the goals of Generation Z Futurists, what exactly we are going to do. So we have some short plans and also a long-term 10-year, let's say, goal. We have actually a massive transformative purpose, or MTP, for this, because we have formed let's say this Generation Z Futurist, let's say, movement based on exponential organization. We don't want to be like the ordinary, old, traditional organizations. So what we are going to do is, it will be a platform. So people can join us, people can interact actually, and we will have a platform, let's say like TED. TED just started with few videos, and now you know that there are let's say hundreds of countries and millions of viewers for TED. They started. So one attribute of exponential organization is to have a crowd and community. This is what that we have focused on, so that we want to really make a community of young people, generations, that they are going to let's say learn about the future. One interesting thing that I want to tell you is that we have already started some communication with young people who already have impacted the world in a large scale. I can tell you one of them, Malala Yousafzai. Probably you know her.
Yes.
She was a
By the
girl.
way, do you
Yeah.
see my screen right now? The
Yes,
the
thank you so
website of
much for
Generations of Future.
sharing. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Yeah,
Okay.
this is the
Go
website. We
on.
are working on that, and probably we are working to have an application also soon, so it will make things easier. So Malala was a teenager that actually had a problem, let's say, with some extremists in Afghanistan, and now she is working on teaching
In
girls.
Pakistan.
Sorry, yes, in Pakistan, but of course, yeah, there were Taliban there, so that they did not have the opportunity to go to school. And anyway, you
Yeah.
can find a story about her, but now she is focusing on teaching the girls in countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan. And we already have made some contact. We want to actually teach those girls and even, let's say, boys about the future studies that already she has done something about. And there are some other peoples that also we want to work through them so that they will join this platform. And I think it can make a great impact on this change that we are going to do.
One wonderful initiative. Actually, I congratulate you
Thank
with
you.
all your with all of your efforts and all your energy that you are putting in that website and platform. And
Thanks.
I'm really impressed by the scale and the breadth and depth of what you are right now doing. Because I'm actually working most of the time with academic level people and with the grown-ups and adult people, and I can hardly imagine how is it going to possible. It is going to possible to engage a couple of or a group of minors or juniors or school-age children to learn more about the core knowledge base of futures studies, and I cannot imagine how that is going to be a practical way of doing research and activity. And I'm sure that you have already faced a couple of challenges. Some of them you reviewed today, like
Right.
talking to the school managers about
Right.
the content, about the technology infrastructure, about the mentality or the mindset. But if you want to wrap up this session and put the other ideas for a later continuing discussion later, uh, in a few sentences, could you just summarize what are the big challenges that you have already faced in involving schools? I mean, pre-university or pre-college schools in increasing or enhancing futures literacy.
Yeah, actually, the problem is that our problem is not with children. You know, when we talk to
Mm-hmm.
children about the future, as I told you, they are interested. They want to know more about it. But the problem we have is with the grown-up adults that their mindset actually is so linear, so rigid that they cannot accept the change unless something big happens, you know, like this corona. Actually, this coronavirus crisis, let's say it was a shock, somehow good for us. Now, because we can tell them that, let's say, if you can be prepared for the next 1, 2, 3 years and make your education system based on new technologies so that it will be easier also for you to manage. Let me tell you actually a website that viewers can later go, century.tech. This is a website that they are working on technologies based on AI and neuroscience to teach children and to help teachers actually to control their let's say students. And it's so amazing. It gives the teachers a lot of tools to, for example, mark the homework in a very short time with the help of AI and neuroscience without wasting a lot of time. There are a lot of useful tools and features with this website that they have done, and this is something that we are going to let's say recommend it to some schools. But as I said, the problem is not children. It's about the authorities that we want to convince them that whether we want it or not, this is something that will happen in the next, let's say, 3, 5, and maximum 10 years. So it's much better to be prepared for it, because if you do not disrupt your system, your school system, some websites, some applications, some platforms, they will disrupt it, and then you will find out yourself in the middle of something that you don't definitely want to be in.
Good luck with all your efforts and initiatives. Of course,
Thank you.
I'm going to follow up with you and see if I can help in any regard or any place that I can add my contribution. And I wish you and Arsam and the schools that you are working with them, I mean, your platform also, the Generation Z platform, to flourish, and you will see much more synergic collaborations between you and other people like Teach the Future, who are already working on providing suitable and appropriate content for enhancing the future's literacy among the new generation. Thank you for your time today, and let's aim to continue this dialogue later with new recordings.
Thank you so much for the time and for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, and
goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.